This is the Infinite Receiving Podcast, helping conscious leaders tap into a wealth of abundance across all areas of your life and business. I'm Susie Ashworth, and I'll be sharing with you how you can upgrade your reality through quantum transformation, because you are ready for infinite receiving. Hello, love. You're going to love this episode that I recorded with Tamu Thomas. We talk everything around the subject of women who work too much. And I say this at the beginning of the episode, but I think that it's something that I want to emphasize. Tamu and I come at things from quite a different perspective on the surface of things. But when you lift the hood, we have so many shared perspectives and values around how to help you empower yourself to create more of the life that you want, the work that you want, how to ask for more of what it is that you desire. We talk about pleasure, we talk about the nervous system, we talk about safety, we talk about love. We go into all of the ins and outs, and I know that you are going to love this episode. So without any further ado, let's get on with it. Hello, you gorgeous human being. It is Susie Ashworth here, and you are listening to the Infinite Receiving Podcast. And I have got a juicy one for you today. I'm really excited to introduce you to my next guest. Her name is Tamu Thomas. And actually, I think that I have known Tamu for 8 years, 9 years. Could even be, I feel like it's 8 years, not quite at the beginning of when I stepped into the online world, but it has been a long time. And Tamu is an emotional well-being coach and an expert in somatic healing, and has got a brand new book coming out in March called Women Who Work Too Much. And I really wanted to have this conversation now because we talk about things, we talk about very similar themes, and actually the outcome of the way that we both talk about things is very similar in many cases, but we come at it from quite different angles. And so I think this is a really beautiful opportunity for us to have a really rich conversation about the things that matter most in this world. So, Tamu, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. And yeah, it has been, I didn't even think about that. It's been a long
It's
time.
been a very long time, and now we
Yeah.
are both Hay House authors looking to take on the world in another way, which is amazing. So, congratulations! And
Thank you. And you too. You too.
thank you. And before we get into book chat, I would love for you to share, like, what is your background before you were in the online world? What were you doing, and who were you?
Well, I was another version of me. So before coming into the online space, I was a local authority social worker. I worked with children and families who were very close to, well, I was a child protection social worker. So I worked with families that had intergenerational issues, and I helped courts decide whether or not it was safe for children to remain in their family or whether they needed to be placed elsewhere. It was a career I was very passionate about. I learned so much. It expanded me as a person. It fed my obsession and passion in relation to human behavior and growth and making positive change. And it was extremely taxing. And I lived in burnout. Burnout was a badge of honor. If you weren't stressed to the nth degree, walking around really busy, you weren't doing your job right. And I remember looking at my daughter and thinking, I'm always working too much, wink, and I feel like I'm constantly scraping the bottom of the barrel of my energy to be able to show up for you as a parent. There was not a lot of joy in my life. Everything was really serious. And I'd always, well, since around the age of 6, with the influence of a very dynamic aunt, I wanted to have my own business. So I set up my own private social work practice, and I was still burnt out. I was still feeling shattered. My mental health started to be impacted. So I discovered the world of positive psychology and did a weekend course in positive psychology. And that helped me decide to utilize the skills I learned in social work and use them to work with people who actually wanted to make change in their lives and experience more joy, satisfaction, and pleasure.
Well, there's so much stuff in there because, of course, this is when I met you actually, and I think that joy has always been a theme that has been so important. But I am curious, what made you first of all move into that field of social work?
My mum was a foster carer, so I've always been quite an altruistic person. I was bullied at school for a significant period of time, so I've always been sensitive to injustice and things that feel like they're unfair. My parents were activists back in the day, so I've always had a passion for supporting what I would call now supporting human thriving, looking at ways to improve things and help people's experience be better. And I was working in the entertainment industry, and I got to a point where I thought, I don't care if Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears has a number one. It's not doing anything for me. And I was volunteering for the Refugee Council. I was helping young people develop interview skills and sort out their CVs. And I just saw the way they weren't treated very well by their corporate parent, who was the local authority. And I just kept thinking, I could do better than that, if I'm perfectly honest. And then when my mum became a foster carer, I saw how children in care, I kept hearing people talk about the local authority being the corporate parent, but I didn't feel like the corporate parent was parenting. So because I've got like a passion for helping people and I want to make positive change, I was like, I could do better than that. And then as fates would have it, when I have this, it's like a download, the universe just provides. So I had that idea on the Saturday. On the Thursday, I opened my mum's local newspaper and there was a half-page advert for trainee social workers where you did on-the-job training. And that suited me because I'm not very good at doing homework. I've got ADHD. But if I'm in an environment where we're studying together and there's a chance of people seeing me fail, I'm much more likely to follow through. So I applied for that role. I got the role, and yeah.
And the rest is
That was that.
history. So I'm really interested in this culture of the badge of honor. I am doing so much that I'm kind of on my knees and I want everybody to kind of give me a round of applause for it. And I'm curious, is that coming from just the desire to help so much? So in my work, I might, if I was going to archetype that kind of personality trait, I might say that it is the martyr archetype. So it's like I need to give, and I'm going to give to everybody else. And in this situation, it's about the kids, it's about the families, and I'm going to put myself on the back burner because I am not as important as them. Or was it expected and came from the top down, like these are our targets, these are our quotas, this is how many families we've got, and you're expected to get around regardless of what else is going on in your life because this is what otherwise we're going to get in trouble from our bosses. What was it, or was it a bit of both or something else?
So I would describe myself as I would describe my traits as like high functioning codependent, but the martyr, and this could well be ego, the martyr feels a lot more, oh, I'll get in trouble. It was way more, I can do this, I'm a hero. And if I'm really honest, without checking and being clear about what my motivations are, it is also unconscious judgment. I know better than you. I can sort this out for you. I can show you how to do it. So there was a whole lot in there. And in addition to that, being brought up by parents and within an environment that not just told me, but I also had evidence that as a black person, as a dark-skinned black person, I had to work twice as hard for half as much recognition as my white counterparts. So that there were loads of different facets that came together that created this. And if you're into human design, I'm a 5-1 manifesting generator. And when that's unchecked, it can be like a real savior complex. So there's definitely something in me that's like, well, I've got the capacity, I've got this boundless energy, so I thought, so I can support you. And I don't have needs. I don't need anything, so I can give it all away to you. So there was like a real combination of things that came together to create, that environment. And when it was unchecked, that's what led to the burnout and the existential crisis that led to my awakening.
Can you tell me what exactly is burnout? I am somebody who can honestly say in my 45 years, it is not something that I have experienced. And I have seen many clients have come to me after working in a corporate and sometimes working in their own business in a way that has not served them and are afraid of burning out. And in my limited experience, what I've seen is people doing stuff beyond their capacity, doing stuff that they hate, and then pushing that stuff beyond their capacity. That is what creates the burnout. But I would love to know if you know the official term for what burnout is, and then kind of what are the symptoms of it.
Well, of course, you've asked me a question that I'm going to find difficult to answer. In my book, I have the World Health Organization definition of burnout, which is a lot more succinct. But burnout, it's not just from doing things you hate. You can experience burnout from just doing too much, full stop. So it's not necessarily coming from a negative place. Too much of anything can be too much for our system. But it is chronic exhaustion that impacts your mental health, your mental well-being. So it's not just about feeling tired. A lot of us can push through tired. It can manifest as anxiety. We can experience a lot of resistance. It makes us irritable, short mood. Like that, I know people that talked about they would have to go and cry in the toilets at work, for example. It really impacts your ability to cope with what would be within your sphere of normal, because you're constantly going outside that. And often people experience burnout because they don't know what their bandwidth is. So they're just going and going and going until their body forces them to stop.
That's a really, really good point. How do you know what your bandwidth is? Or how do you find out what your bandwidth is?
So, an exercise I offer, like our bandwidth is way smaller than we would anticipate. So, a physical representation of your bandwidth, I ask people to, and if you're watching this, you can do it now. I ask people to sit or stand looking straight ahead, and then turn your neck very gently as far as you can go without any pulling or any strain. So for me, that's here. And then bring your head back to center. Turn it the other way as far as you can go without any strain. Back to center. Tilt your head upwards, backwards, as far as you can go before you feel any pulling or strain. And then we come forward and do it again. And then we're now going to stretch as far as we can go without hurting yourself. Okay, so you know your body. As soon as you start to feel like a lot of pulling, stop. So I'm going to invite you to move your head to the right as far as you can go without hurting yourself, and then bring your head to the center. Do it to the other side as far as you can go without hurting yourself. Back again, and then backwards again as far as you can go without hurting yourself, and then bring it forward, and then back to center. So that is a physical representation of the difference between your natural organic bandwidth and what it's like to go beyond that. So if you think about when you're working and you feel like you're firing on all cylinders, you end the day, you're not exhausted, but you know you've used your energy well, you've put it to good use, and you can go to sleep without lots of jiggery pokery. You do your bedtime routine, you go to sleep, you sleep well, you're well rested, and you wake up. That is quote unquote normal. So some research in positive psychology said that we work at our optimal capacity when we work at to 80% of our physical, whatever our own personal physical and mental capacity is. In our society, we're conditioned to give 100%. So we're giving 100% as our bare minimum. That means we've got no spare. So when we need to crank it up, as sometimes we do, we're going over that. And we get fast results. We either fail quickly or we get the successes we want. We accomplish the things we want really quickly. So we get caught up in the allure of being in that 100% plus phase, which isn't healthy for us, which means that we end up going really, really fast, then having to slam the brakes. Whereas when we're operating at our 80%, we're in cruise control, we can cover great miles without exhausting ourselves. So my invitation to anybody listening is to think about the times where they have been working, and I liken it to feeling like the Fonz in Happy Days, if you're old enough to remember Happy Days, and you just feel cool, in control. If something happened, you're like, yeah, cool, I've got that, no problem. I can be creative, I can think of a solution. That is operating within your natural bandwidth. And I'm not saying that's how we should be all the time. We've got a sympathetic nervous system for a reason. When we need to activate ourselves and we need to give a bit more, we absolutely can do that and should do that. But it's living in that go, go, go all the time. It's just not sustainable for our bodies.
So I have a question about growth and stretching our capacity so that you can ultimately increase your bandwidth safely. Do you think that that is possible? And if so,
I do think that's possible.
how do you oh, good, because I think that I must have improved, I must have increased my bandwidth during my life for sure. Well, I know I have, but how do you do that consciously?
So, consciously, you do that by first of all asking the question, how can I do that consciously? And I also want to add that, unlike, so our society is built on positivism. So, we want like definitive answers. We want to know, like, we know 2 and 2 equals 4. But when we're looking at things from a somatic point of view, we need to be much more diverse in our thinking. It's not an exact science because, 2 and 2 equals 4, but so does 5 - 1, so does 3 + 1. So it's not an exact science, and it relies on you checking in and feeling how you feel, being in touch with your sensations. As a woman or somebody who menstruates, it's also our bandwidth and our ability to expand is also guided by our cycles. All of us human beings are cyclical in our nature, and people who menstruate are especially cyclical in our nature. So, what we can do in our ovulatory phase and what we can do in our luteal phase aren't the same. So, we're dynamic, we're not static. So, that's the first part. And what you need to do is treat it like strength training. You don't go to the gym and like you've never been to the gym before, or you haven't been to the gym for a long time. You don't go straight in and say, I'm going to start squatting 80 kg. Maybe you'll just start squatting with the bar, and then you gradually you rest, you build, you rest, you make sure you're nurturing yourself so that your capacity grows, and it requires the repetition. You can't just go to the gym for 3 weeks and think that's it, you're set for life. So in relation to our growth, it's about having those goals. I'm a very growth minded person. I talk about all of this stuff and I'm still very ambitious. I still reach the goals I want to reach. I'm just not killing myself to get there. And I'm constantly asking myself, is this bringing me satisfaction? Is this bringing me joy? Because I had a past of chasing arbitrary goals and figures, and they brought me no satisfaction, no joy. In fact, I didn't even notice when I reached those markers because I was on to the next, on to the next. There were parts of me that maybe could have been described as type A personality. And now I'm like, that ain't even a real thing. Type A, the A is for anxiety. Like, we're fueled by anxiety. We're galloping, galloping, galloping because we're fueled by anxiety to get to the next destination and run away from the former. So it's about understanding what makes you feel satisfied, what makes you feel fulfilled. What do you look at and have a real internal sense of gratitude that comes from the inside out? So you set your goals according to that and reverse engineer. So I invite people to consider, you bump into a friend that you haven't seen for 3 years, you both have time to go into a cafe and catch up. What do you want to be telling that person about how you live, about how you love, about how you work, and then reverse engineer? And what you will see is that you build over time. So it is, we live in the micro. And I'm sure it's James Clear that talks about micro habits that we build on every day. If I think about the online space, when I first came into the online business space, it was all about six figures. It was this wonderful world of six figures. And I really wanted to create this six figures because that was the thing. And also, I calculated for the quality of life I wanted to live that six figures would be, the starting place for that. But I was running. I was running around aimlessly, headless, like a headless chicken, just grabbing, grabbing, grabbing. Whereas when I slowed down and thought about what I want, how I want to have it, and opened myself up to receive, I cruised past that like that first six figure, that 100K. I didn't even notice because I created it with such ease and such grace and such joy, which brought about a whole nother set of problems because I had a program that it was going to be really grueling hard work. And it was a shock to my system that it wasn't hard work. The hardest work was being open to receive. So it's about those micro things we do day by day that have a compounding impact and build momentum. So the next thing you know, you're just 90 miles is your normal.
I love this so much. I literally just come off the back of a 3 day event and I was really noticing. So I wasn't operating at 100% of my capacity. It was probably like 125% because I'm on for 9 hours a day, maybe even 10, for 3 full days. And then I really looked at my energy the day after, and my body was tired, but my mind was alert. And then 2 days after, which is actually maybe even now. And I've been doing this thing for the last 30 days called the devotion experience. And part of that is making time twice a day to exercise, to move my body in some way, shape, or form for 30 minutes. Drink 2.5 liters of water. Like there's a whole lot of things that I'm doing. And what I really realized in my contemplation about my energy and how good I felt in my body despite that over exertion was that it is the fact that I've been creating space in my life to do this devotion experience. And that means that I've had to have real discernment because I've put in all of these other things, means I couldn't do all of the things that I was doing before. I had to choose what was in alignment with devotion and what wasn't. And what happened during that time is not only did I build my mental capacity, so my confidence and my trust in myself, but those that time for walking, because I wasn't even, sometimes it's pole dancing, sometimes it's being on the Peloton bike, but consistently it has been walking, really built my energetic field and my energetic capacity. And so my recovery, whilst my body's still a little tired, and we will, I will make it up, but I really feel that it is those small daily habits, which is I spoke a lot about at the weekend, small daily habits that have really, as you just said, created the compound effect. So I can stretch and then I can come back, but my set point when I come back is has increased because of all of the work that I've done before. So I really, really love that. And the other thing that I really take from what you have said, and it's why when I talk about manifestation, it's really the last thing that I ever talk about. It is, who are you being in the process? How much are you loving your life on the day to day? As you are creating what it is that you desire, how are you doing it and who are you being? And the more that you are in love with how you're doing it and who you're being on a day to day, not only do you tend to magnetize what it is that you want more quickly, but even if it doesn't arrive the way that you thought it was going to, or when you thought it was going to, or looking like you thought it was going to, it doesn't matter because you're living the life of your dreams, which is all about that joy. And are you satiated by your life now rather than running to get the end goal? So I really love everything that you shared. Thank you. It, yeah.
Can I just also share in what you said? There are some things, so Gay Hendricks will refer to it as your zone of genius. And I feel like there are some things that we are built for. Like that's why we were put on this earth. It's our destiny. That's your dharma. And I think that when you have a destiny, a dharma that is about you being of service to yourself and other people, and playing in that slipstream where you're channeling the divine and sharing it with other people and making sure that you're a conduit. So you are experiencing, you are savoring, you are having some for yourself, and you're sharing with others rather than giving it all away. That really fuels you. So when I'm doing a live event, I don't have, like, I build in mechanisms so that I can do the care, that like the aftercare, like the pre-care and the aftercare, and I make sure I'm supported during. But a lot of the time, like, to be honest with you, I could do without it because I get so fueled by that kind of thing. But I also make sure I take care of it so I'm not taking for granted what God has given me to share with other humans and this planet. I think that is so, so, so important. And the other thing that struck me when you were sharing is that, so maybe we would describe that you talk about it from the top down, and I talk about it from the bottom up. But the top down and the bottom up, it's all the same thing because it all comes from this beautiful ecosystem. And when we combine that, so when we draw up from our mother, planet Earth, and when we draw down from Father Sky, we are operating as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven, and we are conduits for that. And that is really regenerative. So when I talk to my clients about their work, I ask them to consider what is regenerative for you. Like, I'll be totally honest with you, those daily micro habits, as a person with ADHD who's like very often, all the time, hunting for dopamine, right? I need so much more support and care in relation to those daily habits. Whereas give me a microphone and a stage and loads of people, boom, all good. I don't have any qualms whatsoever. And I'm sharing that because there are some things that are gifts we're bestowed with, we're blessed with, and there are some things that don't come as naturally. And the first time I came across Tosha Silver was with you in the gateway, and you shared her abundance prayer. And one of the lines in there was something along the lines of, let me allow others the supreme pleasure to give to me. So my daily habits, I find that really hard, but I allow others the supreme pleasure of giving to me, of supporting me. And I don't make myself wrong for that. I don't call myself high maintenance. I need what I need, I want what I want, and I build mechanisms within my life, within my work, to ensure that I can have those things because they make me a better person. And that thing you were talking about, loving your life, love is a huge nervous system sign of safety. And when we talk about manifestation, I teach that we manifest from our nervous system. Our nervous system shapes our beliefs. Our belief shapes how we take up space and what we want in the world. When you are cultivating a nervous system of love and you're creating loving environments and loving experiences, that's a huge sign of safety for your nervous system. And nervous system safety doesn't mean, oh, nothing bad's going to happen. I'm going to walk across this world and I'm not going to be exposed to anything. You are going to be exposed to all of those. But that love, that nervous system regulation is going to cultivate enough safety for you to take the risk of truly living, enough safety for you to be risk aware rather than risk averse. And that is when life rolls out the red carpet.
You've just said like literally so many things, but when you were talking, I like had full body goosebumps. And I think that it's funny, you said you talk about it from maybe top up, top down. I talk about it from bottom up. I think that we both talk about it from inside out. And that is what you are referring to when you talk about the nervous system. The idea that we can eliminate fear, or we can eliminate ever feeling activated by anything in our life, that's for me is not the point. It's when you have enough inner resources, enough inner tools to come back to a sense of, I am okay. I am going to be okay. And then it's your ability to dance with the fear. How effectively can you dance with the risk? And when you can do it effectively, you can stretch your capacity to receive more in a safe way, rather than pushing yourself beyond, pretending that you're not scared at all when you're absolutely petrified, because people can still manifest from that place. It's just not a healthy place. Or go to the other end of the spectrum and don't do anything with your life because you are so afraid of feeling triggered or feeling scared, or some wound from the past presenting itself in the now, sending you into a freeze state, whatever it is. So yes to nervous system regulation. And it's funny because you mentioned the gateway as well. It's now that's the name of my new members club, and it's funny how the names
Oh,
come
cool.
around and around and around.
Well, can I say, when we went to the Hay House Mastermind, we both kind of made a beeline for Dr. Benjamin Hardy. In what we're both talking about, essentially, what we're talking about is what he refers to as raising your floor. So you refer to it as your set point. So something that really stood out for me in listening to him, I didn't have the words for it. We can set all the big goals we want to. But if we're not raising our minimum standards, if we're not raising our floor, if we're not raising our set point, those big goals will then become a source of dysregulation because it's so far away from our baseline. And when you were talking about the work you did to prepare yourself for your 3-day event and the aftercare that you have in place, all of that raises your floor. So when you come down from that lofty height, you're not falling. You're gently coming back down to your set point. And lots of the people I work with are afraid to set what they may consider to be audacious goals because they're thinking about their freeze. They're operating from their freeze, or they're worried about a previous experience of burnout. And there can be a lot of resistance because what I encourage people to do is to first start to resource yourself. Because as you start to resource yourself, you were talking about this devotional practice and the 2.5 liters of water, the moving your body for 30 minutes twice a day. These things that we dismiss as basic needs, they are our essential foundational needs that everything rests upon. I remember talking to you a few years ago, actually, and you were talking about people you work with, and you were like, when you're clear about what it is you need and you're not doing those things, you said something like, don't come to me with that because you know what you're supposed to be doing. And that was like music to my ears. You weren't saying it in a dismissive way, it was very powerful. But ultimately, this body has evolved over millennia. Inside, we know what we need. When we can stop denying what we need and we allow ourselves to have our needs, not because we're needy, but because they're a bid for connection. They're the things that help us feel alive, the verb. When we can do those things, you'll see that you're not on this endless pursuit of self-improvement. You're not applying to work with people like Susie because you're like, if I work with Susie, she's the magic pill, she's going to sort everything out. It's going to be an enhancement. It's going to help you stand taller, put your shoulders back, have your heart out, and face the world like you are somebody, like you are somebody because you are somebody.
I said at the weekend, you are the key. You know, you're looking for the secret over here, you're looking for the secret over there. You are the key. And when you can recognize that and start treating yourself as that unique and special human being that you are, you will stop denying your desires. But the beautiful thing is that the desires, and what you said is, for me, I have people that come to me that they want the big thing, but they're scared of the big thing because they're scared of failing. It's not just the burnout piece and having to do too much for it, but they're scared of failing because they think that the thing that they want is the key. They think that the thing that they want is the secret to their happiness. And so much of, again, I feel like it's just shared values here. So much of the work that we are sharing with people is really understanding that you're the thing that's special. Your voice is special. Your who you are is special, and everything that you desire on top, that is your preference. And you're allowed to have a preference, you're allowed to have a desire, but that is not the thing that makes you you. So you don't need to race for it, you don't need to run for it. You can find your pace and move towards it in a way that is enlivening, is awakening, is absolutely beautiful. Can we talk a little bit about the have it all versus do it all? And your thoughts on when you hear you can have it all, what comes up for you? What is present for you?
Okay, so what comes up for me with You Can Have It All? I remember in the 80s when that narrative was really being pumped out very strongly, and it was shoulder pads and it
With
was be
Maggie.
like a
Yeah.
man and everything you can do, I can do
Mm.
better. So when I think about that, what I think about is the economic crash that happened in the late 70s and early 80s, and the need for more women to enter the workplace. So, working class women, women of colour were already in the workplace in huge numbers. When there was an economic downturn, they needed more middle class, invariably white women to join the workforce. So, there was a strategic narrative encouraging women to believe they could have it all. But the infrastructure to support women having it all wasn't put in place. So there were things like TV dinners created. Us Generation Xers were the biggest generation of latchkey kids because there wasn't adequate childcare put in place for women who had children. So that narrative about you can have it all rested on women doing it all, or women who previously had some kind of support or they were able to be at home now doing it all. They weren't being given the support. So when I talk about having it all means doing it all, I'm coming from a really practical, grounded place that we literally just have to do everything. There are, I forgot what the sociologist's name is, but Arlene something has written a book called The Second Shift that talks about women going out to work, doing their shift at work, but also having a second shift when they come home. And for those of you that have children, you may have done the first shift when you woke up in the morning, getting the kids ready for school, doing your work, and then doing the stuff in the evening. But also, that narrative encouraged an idea of hyper independence. What I know and what most of us experience to be true is anybody that we perceive as having it all has a lot of support in place to enable them to do that. So, with my message about having it all means doing it all, I want people to understand that having it all, none of us can do it on our own. We all need support. We are a complex ecosystem within a complex ecosystem. The planet Earth has so many layers and different things going on to create the environment. There's not one thing that makes the planet Earth. And I want women not to give themselves a hard time because they're trying to do it all, so they can slow down and understand, if I'm going to be creating these wonderful things, this is the support I need to have in place. And maybe there are some things I can't do.
Yes, which is why one of the pillars of infinite receiving is the pillar of infinite support. And the
Love.
reason that this part of the conversation I was excited to have is because if you just look at it on the surface, it's like we're saying opposite things. And but you just have to go a little bit beneath the surface, and it is I believe that we're coming from the same place. When I say to people, you can have it all, what I want people to tune into is, what do you desire? Like, what do you actually want for you? Not what you think that you should want because your parents said, not because of what you're being marketed to, not because of what your best friend, not because of what the neighbors are doing, but what do you want? You know, I want a love story that goes down in the books, you know, and I get to have that love story. I want relationships with my children where we laugh and we play and we get to explore the world together and we get to have just really, really incredible relationships that where eventually at some point we will be able to officially say, I'll be able to say to my kids that you're a good friend, and they'll be able to say to me, Mum, you're a good mate. Like, not now, because it's not appropriate for that now, but eventually that is what I desire to cultivate. I desire to have a business that is rooted in cellular transformation, that really helps people to create the version of themselves that they desire to be, not the version of ourselves that we have been molded into because of past, because of experience, because of partners, because of life, you know. And that's a lot for some people to say that. I desire to have an abundance of money in the bank. I desire to be able to travel the world. I desire to be able to write more books. When I say all of that, it's a lot for some people to hear. It's like, but
Even the word desire.
yeah, it's a big word. The frequency of that is big. Most people are rarely being asked what they want. And if they are, we feel that we have to temper it because the world that we have, and again, it's just this perspectives, but for me, I see that the world that we have grown up in says too much. If you're a black woman, to speak like I have just spoken is a bit fucking out there, you know. And one of the most beautiful things from the weekend was seeing so many black and brown faces and people saying, you were the first black woman who I heard speak like this. And honestly, when I first started speaking like this, it was offensive. It was offensive to have a black woman saying this because that is not what we have been told is possible. And so this is a lie, or you're a fraud, or you're trying to create, you're setting people up for failure. And I think that whether it's black women, brown women, women in general, so many times you can do it all is not the same as you can have what it is that you desire. And that is really where I come from in this conversation. And the only way that you can have what you desire is to speak your needs. Like, what do I need in order to create this? Who am I going to need to be? What do I need to let go of? And what do I need to lean into? And what support is available for me? What support can I create? What support will I allow? What support will I give myself permission to receive in order to create my desires? I'll get off my box.
Susie Rocker. I have to go old school, right? Now that I have a workshop called The Potent Power of Pleasure. It is not uncommon for me to share that workshop and women become tearful, because this is why I talk about systemic issues and factors, because they permeate every section of our lives. And if we don't look at them, we autopilot into a social contract that separates us from ourselves and what we desire. So many women, when I talk about it, so, you know, we've got the gut brain axis. I say, you know, as women and people with a clitoris, we have the pleasure power axis. Our pleasure is the root of our power. Pleasured women are powerful women, but you have to surrender an element of control
Oh,
in order to experience
oh
pleasure.
my God,
Right?
this is so
And
true.
a lot of us survive and cope by over control. So when I speak to women and I talk about the relationship with your body, I'll be like, stop gripping your
Yeah,
pelvis.
release your asshole.
Stop, send some love down there. And then we'll have conversations about clamping down your pelvic area when you're about to orgasm.
Yes.
So you're reducing the power of your orgasm, not allowing yourself to experience the breadth of pleasure when you're doing something pleasurable, when you're enjoying yourself, because you feel like you've got to grind to earn pleasure. And I'm like, nah, that's your birthright. And if you can begin to weave in micro amounts of pleasure every single day, that is going to support you to cultivate enough inner safety that your body is going to start rather than playing into our inbuilt negativity bias. You start to build a positivity bias. In positive psychology, they talk about learned helplessness. When you actually start to consciously, that's why I used to talk about everyday joy, allow your body to sense joy and pleasure, you start to go from learned helplessness to learn optimism. It's not that everything is wonderful and hunky-dory. It's like, okay, cool, I've got this, I'm resourced. How am I going to manage this difficulty? And on the other end, how am I going to savor this beauty, this richness I've created? How am I going to understand that what I desire desires me too? In fact, I desire that thing because that thing was desiring me first. So allowing ourselves to gradually experience and play with more and more pleasure. And that can literally be, I'm sitting here with you cross-legged. As often as I remember, I will imagine my brain too, I will imagine my breath going right down into my groin, into that pelvic area of creativity and rebirth, renewal, life, and all of that. I will imagine my breath going down there, supporting me, sustaining me. Because doing that on a regular basis, I'm saying to my body, I care about you. I love you. I'm treating you with reverence. You're important. I'm not putting myself on the back burner. When you and I talk about the things we talk about, people start thinking, right, I'm going to have a 2-hour morning routine. I'm going to have to do sun salutations. I've got to set my intentions every time the moon is new. You can do all of that. But the stuff that's really going to make a difference is you treating yourself with respect every day. Of course, we're going to forget because we're busy, we're doing things, whatever else. But every time you remember, that's an invitation to treat yourself with love and care and respect. And that is the stuff that opens you up to life. That is the stuff that opens you up to receiving. And that is the stuff that enables you to make good on the strategies you have learned, the processes you have learned, and all of these other things. When we're just trying to do mindset, but we haven't cultivated the space within ourselves, mindset can actually feel really oppressive because you're butting up against an internal dialogue that is like, nah, I'm not eligible for what I desire. I'm not eligible for more than I could think I can possibly handle. So we've really got to take a holistic view and not poo-poo and dismiss things like the things we desire, what gives us pleasure, what gives us joy. It's, an essential ingredient, and getting that infinite support to be able to assist us in that regard.
I think that probably one of my biggest breakthroughs over the last 18 months, but potentially 2 years, has been in the physical activation of pleasure. And I did a sex, love, and relationship coaching program that was really quite life changing. And what it enabled me to do, we talked right at the very beginning. And I think that the guy that wrote the polyvagal theory, I cannot remember his name. He doesn't so much talk about
Stephen
Porges. He doesn't so much talk about love. He talks about safety. But in my program, which was the Layla Martin Vita coaching program, she talked, it was safety and love that are the key tools for any transformation. And within the the context of that program, pleasure allows us to access both that sense of safety and love, and transform so many of those negative experiences held within the memory of the body. And what was so powerful is something like a 5-minute breast massage in your shower every day has the capacity to open you up exponentially. Why? Because you're connecting with self. And as you connect with yourself and allow yourself to feel the pleasure, you're regulating, your nervous system feels safe, feels happy, feels regulated. You feel joy, you feel pleasure. It makes everything so much more beautiful. And at the same time, you can also use that breast massage, in my experience, not necessarily for 5 minutes, but when you are feeling sadness, when you're feeling pain, when you're feeling grief, to allow your pleasure to transmute, not bypass, but transmute those emotions has also been such a mind blowing additional tool for me, because pleasure and love and safety are the building blocks for all transformation, in my opinion, and in the opinion of our teachers and mentors. And so frequently, we will go for the badge of victim, go for the badge of martyr, go for the badge of burnout, versus actually, why don't I celebrate myself? Actually, why don't I love on myself? Why don't I provide myself pleasure in this moment? Will transform so many of the things that keep us battened down. So
Mm.
yeah, again, I love this.
Because it forces us to be, or it encourages us to be present.
Mm.
So Peter Levine, who I joke and say he's like the Jay-Z of the
Yeah.
somatic world, he is the person that came up with a somatic experiencing. He has a quote. This isn't exactly it, but it's something along the lines of, the past doesn't matter when we learn how to be present.
Mm.
A healing moment ripples forwards and backwards, out and about. So basically, when you are experiencing that sadness, that grief, and you allow it to be
Mm.
tenderized by pleasure, so it can literally be sitting on a comfortable chair, placing one hand on your heart, one hand on your navel, and allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling so you can process that, you're healing so many griefs, so many sadnesses, so many hurts with that one singular act. And you don't have to be digging into exactly when this happened and pinpoint exactly what that thing is. You are offering yourself profound healing. So it is not bypassing at all. It is processing. It is hashtag doing the work, and it's doing the work from a place of respect, care, and reverence. It's stepping into the world of post traumatic growth rather than being stuck in post traumatic stress disorder. And we all, one of the things that kept me going in social work is that we all have boundless capacity for change if we tap into it. We all have boundless capacity for growth if we allow it to be. And it brings in again that control piece. When we are used to being in survival, when we're used to being disappointed, we have tried and tested patterns for that. The neurological pathways are ready to swoop in. Don't worry, this is what happens to us. Maybe next time we won't even try because we're going to be let down, we're going to be disappointed, or this thing didn't happen exactly in the way you wanted it to. When you're actually able to process and recognize you're not going to die, if you have a launch and you get 7 people instead of 10, or you get 1 people instead of 10, you're not going to die. You can learn from that and move on. We have to open ourselves up to recognize that really and truly, we don't have control over anything
Mm.
other than ourselves. And if we can make sure that we take care of ourselves and don't write ourselves off because of one thing, life is a whole spectrum of things, we can bounce back, expand our capacity, and continue to move forward. It's essential. It's one of the keys to being able to grow and to understand that growth doesn't always look like the way we envisaged it to
God,
be.
everybody would be all in if growth was linear. Do you know what I mean? If you just had to follow this blueprint and it just took you from here to point there, like, great. But the reality is that if you as a person can understand that the feedback that you are receiving in any given moment means nothing about you inherently, and it it means your feedback is not another word for you as a failure. And I think that it's so painful to think of yourself as a failure that most people will do anything to avoid it. And the reality is that when you learn how to regulate, when you know that you're safe, whether you have one person or 10 people, when you know that you are going to be resourceful, when you know that you're like, there is total chaos around you, if you know how to center yourself in safety, in my experience, you cannot help but excel, because you will learn and you will move forward and you will learn again and you will move forward. And that, that's why we are sat here after a decade of being in the industry, because feedback is only feedback.
And you know, our biology is designed to protect us, to keep us safe. So you're going to have a reaction to feedback that doesn't feel good, but you don't have to autopilot into that survival response. You can take a breath. You can say, hang on a minute, is that true? And if it's true, does this truth represent everything? No, it doesn't. So I've had occasions where I've made a mistake with a client and I've said something or I have done something that has made somebody feel unsafe in my presence. For me, knowing that that's about my work, it's not an innate character flaw, enables me to say to that person, can we meet and have a conversation, because I want to see how I can repair this rupture. I don't write myself off. I'm such a bad person. I've hurt that person's feelings, or I didn't take that person's feelings into consideration. I'm a human being. Like literally regulating your breath, taking deep, nourishing breaths, not like hyperventilating, but gently, can give you enough resource to bring yourself back into this time and space, not start thinking about all of the bad things you've done in the past and lumping them all into this thing that's happening in the present. So you can come to this thing with clean energy, so you can be present in this time and space. And most of the time when we create a rupture, if we handle it with care, we find that we deepen the relationship, we renew the relationship, we build trust, and we're not holding ourselves to some ridiculous, impossible standard. That fear of failure you speak to, a lot of people, I'm sure, in both of our worlds are so worried about how they may be perceived by other people who, frankly, don't really care, that they're not taking the actions they want to take because they don't want to ruffle any feathers. But what happens is, on an internal level, on a subconscious level, they then become like authority figures that disappointed them or didn't see them or didn't value them in their childhood. They now are the authority figure. They now are the adult that's disappointing them by preventing them from even trying. So I say something which sometimes puts people's back up. I say achieving is healing. And I don't mean achieving at all costs. But if you set yourself a goal and you get that infinite support to help you to work towards achieving that goal, and you allow yourself to really plug into that journey, whether you achieve that goal in the way you wanted to or not, just the act of backing yourself and going for what you want is incredibly healing, because you're no longer somebody that disappoints you. You're somebody that has your back. And you can transfer that into your business, because a lot of people have fight or flight relationships with their business, and their business becomes a symbol of an authority figure, a bigger being that disappoints them. And they can instead think about how they want their business to be, how they want their business to serve them. So they begin to work in partnership with their business rather than having their business dragging them all around and treating them like they're not important.
Yes. Yeah, I want 1,000,000% everything that you just said. I want to ask you one more thing about one of the concepts in the book that you share when you say it's not your fault. And that's a phrase that is used, I think, quite a lot in marketing. to manipulate people into buying more stuff. What do you mean when you are talking about that? It's not your fault.
The environment in which we live, or the system in which we live, permeates everything we do. It creates a psychological contract, a code of conduct that we buy into if we don't realize it's there. So let's say, I have various conversations with people who talk about boss babes and boss babe culture, and they can be very derogatory about this. And I'm like, but that's feeding into patriarchy. Patriarchy creates an environment where these women believe they need to embody certain characteristics and qualities in order to be successful. And then we shame them because we're saying what they're doing is bad and wrong. Sometimes, if we keep it 100, we are talking about them in that way because there's a bit of envy there. These women are embodying qualities that you wish you could, but you're not, whether it's because you think you're going to be judged or whether you're going to experience burnout or whatever. But when you realize there is a larger system at play, you can then start to think, well, actually, if I didn't subconsciously believe that women should behave a certain way, that women shouldn't be outwardly ambitious, that women shouldn't, if I didn't believe that women should be martyrs, and if I believed that women could be as powerful as they want to be, would I be judging them in this way? And I'm saying it's not your fault, not because I want to give people a cop out, but it's not. It's conditioning, it's programming, and that is intergenerational. Epigenetics tells us that experiences our ancestors have had changes our gene expression, it suppresses our gene expression. When we can see those things, we're like, oh, actually, it's not this person I'm calling a boss babe, it's not her fault. And actually, I'm not going to blame, I'm not going to shame and blame myself for judging her. I'm going to realize there's a larger system at play, and I'm going to make a powerful choice about how I engage within it or step outside it. When you realize that actually it's not about the person you're calling a boss babe, or it's not about the person that you think isn't a go getter, it's about the system in which we live, you will understand live and let live. If that person wants to do that, as long as they are not causing anybody harm, that's their lookout. And it also creates an environment where we are discerning and we take more personal responsibility and accountability. So we both work in the coaching industry. And yes, there are some shady tactics that people employ, but I also encourage people to get to know yourself so that you're not sold to, you're not following any old trend or message. You're thinking, this sounds interesting to me. How does it resonate with me and what I want? How does it feel inside my system? Is this something I'm coming to from a place of victim consciousness and lack? Or is it something that I'm stepping into because it's going to support me to be in my power? The system in which we live, so in my book, I refer to the trinity of oppression, which is capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy, lulls us into this false sense of victimhood because we are very powerful. And when we can step outside that and say, do you know what, that's not my fault. I do have a choice. I do have agency. We can start to make powerful decisions. And those powerful decisions have a ripple effect on the people who are around us. We are not one. We are singular organisms that make up a bigger organism. And we don't have to nag and evangelize. We don't have to criticize people because they're not doing the work. Role modeling has a huge impact, a bigger impact than what we say. And we're then able to be role models for something different, for something new, for something more expansive. And we won't have all the answers immediately because there's a lot of exploration and curiosity needed. But from that place of curiosity and open-mindedness, we can start to create solutions that suit us as the people we are now and the communities we're part of, because we're not thinking, I'm such a bad person, I'm not organized, I don't know how to manage my time. You can actually step off that and recognize, like the time management piece. My time management, when it is like day 25 to day 28 of my cycle, is shocking. I just allow myself to write those days off. when I'm coming up to ovulation and I'm in
On fire.
ovulation, I'm like Wonder Woman, She-Ra, Chitara, all wrapped into one. So I
Yeah.
allow myself to ebb and flow with my cycle instead of trying to be like a man who has one hormonal, like they don't
Yeah.
fluctuate the way I do, basically.
I hear you. I want to just give some hand clicks. Thank you so much. And before we close out, I want to ask you 6 questions in celebration of this little baby coming into the world. Yay! Infinite
Woohoo!
receiving in all places where you can buy books, coming at you really soon. What does, Tamu, infinite receiving mean to you?
Infinite receiving means to me, it means being available
Mm,
for life as it
love
is.
that. Are you good at it?
It's a practice. I'm getting much better. I'm getting much, much better. And the beauty of it is, as you get better, you get more evidence that allows you to
Yeah,
really sink
beautiful.
into trust.
Where in your life or who in your life right now could you allow to love you just a little bit more?
Oh, gosh. This feels so vulnerable.
Woo!
I have a new love that is a very old person in my life. I have known this person since I was 21, and I could allow him to love me more.
Beautiful.
I could.
What is your greatest attribute, Tamu?
My greatest attribute is I can find even the slimmest slither of gold in darkness. I can find hope. I can find, like, it doesn't matter how down in the dumps or dire the situation is, I will
Beautiful.
always find hope.
What is one thing you are consciously working on manifesting right now?
One thing I am consciously working on manifesting right now,
Yay.
to be quite frank, is a best selling book. That's something I am consciously working on manifesting right now.
Beautiful. And where can you allow yourself to be more supported in your life or in your business right now?
I can allow myself to be more supported in my business by actually letting my VA and my business manager do way more than I do. And in my life, again, I can like allowing myself to receive the love people want to give me, not my finite ideas, but what they want to give, like receiving that.
Okay, we are holding you to all of this. Tamu, it's been such a joy speaking with you today. I would love for you to let people know where can they pre-order the book? Do you have any book bonuses? And outside of the book, where can they find out all about your work?
Yes, well, let me hold up my little friend. Um, I would love it if you could pre-order my book on Amazon. For a new author like me, the Amazon charts and all of that are very influential, and I do have bonuses if you pre-order my book wherever you pre-order it, whether it's Audible, you will get access to my be Your Nervous System's Best Friend course, where I am going to talk you through so you understand your nervous system and you can be a worthy, good partner to your nervous system. And you will also get a Befriend Your Nervous System body scan, which you can do every day if you feel like it. It's going to help you develop a relationship with your body from the inside out and recognize it as a miracle, because it is. So those are the bonuses. And you can find me on Instagram at Tamu, Tanu.Thomas, Thomas. And I share all the stuff I'm doing on there.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And if you have enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I have enjoyed participating in it, do me a favor. I want you to think about one person that you know. And because Tammy's book is for women who work too much, like maybe one woman that you know who really would benefit from hearing this message, and share the episode. You can also share the word by tagging Tamu and I on Instagram. Let us know what really landed with you today. I would deeply appreciate that. And in the meantime, please remember that faith plus action equals miracles. Thank you for listening to Infinite Receiving with me, Susie Ashworth. I'd love to share with you my Infinite Receiving activation audio. Go to susieashworth.com/activate infinite receiving.